until then, Katie, question. Do I want Wi-Fi or mobile hotspot?
Wi-Fi.
Thank you. Keeps putting me on airplane mode.
No,
You
don't
just like
wanna
it
do
doesn't
that.
want me to say anything.
I wasn't hosting.
I'd come over and help you. Madam Chair, we're ready.
Okey doke. Well, welcome, everybody. We have quite a few individuals, about half of our crew online this evening. The rest of us are here in person, and thank you for all participating in tonight's economic development meeting for the city of Wildwood. If we could, please have the roll call
Chair Ottenberg, Councilmember Dodwell,
here.
Councilmember Preston, Councilmember Mabry.
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
She's online. Oh,
Should have it on.
do we have the speakers turned on?
Good. Give me 2 seconds. That didn't sound
We're working on getting the sound from the remote folks turned on, guys. Thank you for your patience.
If you can hear us, could you try to speak up? I want to see if it's isolated to one.
Yeah, I heard her. Do you hear me?
Okay, so that.
Yes, we hear you.
Mr. McCutcheon, could you try to say something again so we can see if it's coming? I don't know why that one device is coming through like that.
Here.
Oh, we're good.
Thank you.
Good to go.
Mr. Galani, can you hear us? I'm thinking he cannot. We'll let him continue
so I'm trying to talk.
troubleshooting.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Galani. He's here. He can't hear me.
He's here.
Yes.
He may be on his way here, actually. But we'll see. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for roll call. We have to vote on the minutes from the last meeting. All those in favor? Say aye.
We got a motion.
First and a second.
Pardon me?
No,
We need a
You
first and
first.
second.
I'm sorry. Yes, we do.
I'll move.
Okay. Can I make a second? We'll be done. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, it looks like the minutes are approved from the last meeting. And we move on then to public comment. We do have a couple of folks here from public side of things, so.
Ed Cohn wants to speak about the mixed-use East Side Theater. Yeah, mixed-use development.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cohn.
Basically,
If you could stand up
yeah, I can stand.
and speak a little bit louder than normal, just so the gentleman and lady that are
I'll do what
online
I
can
can.
hear.
At the last Architects Review Board hearing, there's some concerns expressed about our mixed-use development. We really want to move forward and get phase one done. Phase one is 188 multifamily units. The pickleball courts on the east side of Taylor Road. And then, in addition to the 188 multifamily units, there'll be amenities for the apartment development on the ground floor. And the remainder, after discussions with the ARB, or listening to them, will all be built out as retail. We'll probably do, set up, with the right, we won't do like Bob Dearberg did and just build a building, not put glass in it. We'll build it out. And hopefully, at some point, there'll be a demand for retail. In addition, there was a concern about the trash enclosure as to the proximity to the proposed restaurant. What we felt would be a good move, rather than relocate the trash enclosure, which would be an inconvenience to the tenants, that we would use the existing trash enclosure at the movie theater to service the retail component. The distance that we're asking tenants to walk to that enclosure is no different than they would expect in a large shopping center. And this also means that we don't have to lose any parking spaces. And as the trash accumulates, all we have to do is increase the frequency of pickup. So I think that would be a win-win for everyone. So the question I have, I guess, for the Department of Planning, do I need to just have my architect resubmit just the first floor plan showing retail? And then footnote the trash enclosure to be the one that's existing behind the movie theater? And would that be sufficient?
Mr. Vunich, if you could please speak to that.
Mr. Cohen, we'll actually have some comments to you probably by the end of this week, which will address those two things. So we'll get those to you, then the architect can just work off the list of comments and make the changes from there.
Is there anything I missed? Is there anything about the balconies that we need to discuss or? Oh,
Go ahead.
Prior to the architectural review board seeing the site development plan and the elevations, the department, as it typically does, made a list of comments based upon the architectural guidelines from the town center plan. The architect at the meeting that Mr. Cohen's referenced said they can address all of them except one. And the one actually was more for a residential, single-family detached residential versus multiple family. And the architectural review board said that was fine to forego that. So you had a pretty extensive list that you've already addressed. And most of these will be site plan issues that you hear.
okay. You understand at this point, we're not addressing the residential single family component.
Of course,
Yeah.
but when I speak of the residential, the single family, there was that provision that said no window can be greater than 100 square
Oh.
inches in size.
Right.
And what you had shown were 3 panes that were obviously greater than that, but
Well, you're talking about on the multifamily upper stories, yes.
Mhm.
but one of the neat things about the windows in the multiple family units, one of them's operable, which is really unusual, so that's not.
You like
That's
fresh
very
air.
nice.
I think that's on NPR, but beside that, also I wanted to point out that we will have in the rules and regulations of the leases that tenants will not be permitted to put on the balconies things like barbecue grills or anything that would be, I guess you say, heat related. And that would also apply to, in particular, those balconies that front on Main and Taylor. We would not permit Christmas ornaments or any other flashing light type display that would be a detraction on those major thoroughfares.
Well, I think that's going to be, again, Madam Chair,
I'm
That's
sorry,
okay.
what?
Go right ahead.
I think that's going to be difficult to enforce.
Well, that it will be, but we'll use water balloons rather than.
From the perspective of the department, I think there's a simpler solution, but I'll leave that up to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. We look forward to having groundbreaking on this particular facility as soon as possible, hopefully before the winter months, so that we can begin to see some progress and some additional residents here in Town Center that will support the businesses that we're hoping to support as a city.
Keep in mind that the groundbreaking is dependent on site plan approval. And I can't get my grading plan submitted until I have site plan approval. And the city has a very unique moratorium on issuing grading permits after the month of October. So if the department can truly get me those comments by the end of the week, I can have the architect immediately, swiftly return them so we can proceed. Thank you.
We can, whatever we can do to help, Mr. Vunich. Appreciate it.
Again, Madam Chair,
Yes,
with your
sir.
permission, Mr. Cohen and I talked a day or two ago. And most part, what we think we're going to try to do is on one of those kind of orphan Mondays in September where we don't have meetings now, is to try to hold a special site plan subcommittee meeting so that we can have the site plan subcommittee review it, then have it prepared for the first Monday in October, which gives us enough time because we can issue a preliminary development plan off of a site development plan. It's for generally clearing and grubbing and not the finer grading that goes along with all of the improvements, but I think that's what we're trying to shoot for.
Okay, that sounds good. That's good, because we need residents in this area in order to continue to increase business. So that's important. Do we have any other public speakers? Yeah, I will admit, we have someone here from our wonderful ice cream store over on the 109 Wildwood. I can't ever remember the name of the shopping center here tonight. Thanks for coming. I ran into him in his business the other day and we had a little chat and I asked him to participate in tonight's meeting so that he could listen in on what's important to the city, and we want to hear what's important to the businesses as well. So thank you so much for coming. Do we have any other discussion items from the committee that we need to go over?
The general for information.
Pardon me?
The under discussion items, Vice Chair, with that, all the items should be.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm looking at it offline. Okay, how about an update on the business charges and other business things, if we want to go through that real quick and you can give us the highlights.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm gonna pass it over to our Communications and Economic Development Manager.
Hi, thank
Ms.
you.
Carter.
You have most of the notes obviously in front of you or online, but a couple of things we wanted to highlight. Coming up September 12th, 7:30 in the morning, we'll be gathering with our business community. We're working to get them invited to ensure it's on everyone's calendars. We expect to have strong attendance at that and we look forward to chatting with everyone, getting their input and having another successful final forum of the year. Another thing we wanted to point out, Lucky Dog Central is moving forward with its plans for a soft reopening, September 22nd. It's gonna open for 1 week, get some feedback, and then circle back with a final true opening date. Part of it though, as highlighted below, Miss Becky Salsa, she has temporary approval in the space to make her salsa. So the site-specific ordinance does not permit a commercial kitchen, but the current owners have petitioned to amend it and it's being considered by the planning and zoning with final action on this expected next month. Another thing we wanted to mention is that Main Street Creamery, as many of you know, has closed its doors earlier this month. We have reached out as a department to both the owner as well as Dearborg's Market to try to find out more information about the closing, but we have not heard back.
They giving you any information about Bank of America and anybody?
The department reached out to Bank of America and spoke to the branch manager and they told me they told the department that there is no additional information that could be given at the time. But it does seem based off some subtextual clues, but also just looking at Bank of America's overall pattern, it seems like this is something they're doing kind of nationwide. They're
Yes, they are.
only keeping open physical branches that have the highest traffic counts. So typically, they're going to be keeping open the retail places that are gonna be over that 45,000 vehicles per day, tons of walking traffic. That's why right now they plan to kind of divert all of the Wildwood traffic that would typically come to this bank over to the Ellisville location. So they're already spinning on that. Beginning of the year, they did provide a press release that said they were planning on closing 62 branches. And in this case, only the Arnold location was mentioned at that time, and it seems like they did go forward and close those 62 locations, and it now seems like a second round is pressing in, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay.
But October 22nd is the date for the closure. But I'll pass that back over to you, Gina. Sorry for the.
I was gonna say, and there are other highlights in here that are noted, but that kind of wraps up sort of the bigger level updates we wanted to share more broadly with the group.
And we, if you, with your chair, with your
Yes,
permission,
sir.
Vice Chair. In this case too, we wanted to give a quick update, a more recent update on Sammy's. It's more updated than what's in the packet tonight. We actually, the department spoke with Sammy's Southern Kitchen today and they do plan to open within the coming months, but they do need to replace a water heater and they have to go through the entire permitting process along with potentially painting the building.
Mhm.
So that in itself could be a process, but right now they're still working on getting a contractor out to fix a water heater. So that is their first piece, and then they'll be starting to coordinate with the city to help get permitting done.
Perfect. I'm glad they're willing to take on that role of repairing the building, unlike previous owners that owned the building and didn't want to do those repairs. So
That is true.
You know? Okay, now we move on to ready for action items
Vice
and,
Chair,
yes,
may
sir,
I interrupt?
sure.
I hadn't heard anything about the development interest for property off State Route.
Okay,
Did I not hear that or,
It's in the packet. It's just something, which one? There's two off 109.
this one is the Dunkin' Donuts.
Gotcha. So the reason why that wasn't brought up this afternoon, we wanted to provide a high level overview, but are still waiting at actual confirmation of that interest. We've heard kind of verbally, but nothing in writing that they are interested in a property off 109. We don't have the specifics of the property, how much they're looking for, other than it's gonna be about an acre and that more information is coming.
May I editorialize the knee-jerk reaction, is what I've read?
sure.
High intensity, you can't get any higher intensity than waking up hungry people going to work wanting a donut fix, coffee. Is on a 2-lane state highway, not a 4-lane divided highway is 100. But on a 2-lane, high intensity commuter artery, I think it's called, or even bigger. Do we look forward in an excited fashion or in a fearing fashion to such a business that's constant on and off, on and off? I know it,
Where would that be sitting along 109, Joe? or
Well, there's a
Thomas?
couple properties that could be potential suitors here, but I don't know for sure. That's the thing we're waiting on is with the
Okay.
specific property, where
Okay.
the ingress is. Right now, it's just based off 109.
Yeah. I mean, there are places along 109 where it would be beneficial to have a higher traffic kind of facility at the corner of 109 and Manchester Road or towards the opposite side where the community colleges and other locations.
that's an
Where they're-
immediately better location, optimal location, because you got a stop sign, a
You got a
stoplight.
stoplight at both
And
locations.
that really
so-
chokes and throttles down
That's-
speed.
That's why I was just trying to understand where along 109 they were looking at. So hopefully those are where they're eyeing things. I would think it would reduce their overall cost for any project. Because I would imagine that if a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts is gonna be placed anywhere, city code would require that they have safe ingress and egress into the facility. And so your point is well taken. That we need to make sure that wherever it goes, it's not gonna impede current traffic flow and or safety of our residents.
And the assumption would be that the primary ingress would not be straight off 109. It would most likely be off a road that is Manchester, wherever it might be, that is next to 109. So
Yeah,
there would maybe be a right out, maybe, or something along those lines. It would be a direct access to the highway, but it would not have, potential blockage where people are waiting to turn in there.
Yeah.
Off 109.
Really.
Madam Chair, with any use like that will require a traffic analysis or study to see what the impact is at peak hours and then off hours as well. So that'll be part of the rezoning process.
but we wanna make it beneficial for them to choose to move into the city of Wildwood in a good location for them, a safe location for our residents, so. Moving along to the rest of our agenda. Yes? Oh, Ms. McCutcheon, I'm sorry. I've got my back to the screen, so
That kind of makes it hard.
No.
Joe, I just have a question. So if this business in fact does materialize, are we requiring businesses to use the same materials that we are requiring houses that are built close to the highways?
Yes, ma'am, we'll require a quality range of materials. So no vinyl siding, things along those lines. In most commercial buildings, they go with a masonry or something along those lines. So feel pretty comfortable we'll be able to apply our architectural guidelines to get a good building that fits the area.
And will there be the addition of, I guess, quietness for a better word, using the same kind of materials that we're asking new development to use with inside the building?
Yes, I think most importantly, and I don't want to go necessarily too far in depth, but any of the workplace districts that front onto Route 109 or Manchester Road are prohibited from drive-through facilities. So that's the first step if a Dunkin' Donuts or any other type of user is looking at our town center plan and seeing if we want to add drive-through facilities. If that's the case, then we'll always orientate the drive-through facilities out toward the area where there's noise already, like the roadways. And then screen them as best we can so that, for example, like Lindell Bank, formerly Rockwood Bank, we created the garden wall along the drive-through facility. So it wasn't as, let's say, noticeable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hopper has his hand
Pardon me?
raised.
Mr.
Nathan
Hopper?
Hopper.
Oh, was that me? I couldn't.
That's
hear you.
your turn, Mr. Hopper, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Just, I'm gonna probably make people mad, but I'm just, as for editorializing, I guess, I'm gonna just make one quick statement that it's a little disappointing that we have, as much as we're trying to drive economic development, this is literally just hearsay, and we've already tossed out like 4 or 5 different ways that we can say no to this opportunity. So I think sometimes when people outside the community complain about it's tough to come to Wildwood, this might be kind of a good example of why sometimes it's kind of tough to come to Wildwood. Like we definitely need to do our due diligence as a council to make sure things come in and they're appropriate, but we're not even that far along and we're already looking for things to kind of shoot this thing down. So I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind and stay pretty open-minded and optimistic and positive towards new development in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper. That's my sentiments exactly. Yes, Mr. Munich.
Madam Chair, to Mr. Hopper, several years ago, the Planning and Zoning Commission did consider allowing drive-through facilities in workplace district along Route 109 and Route 100. Ultimately, that failed, but the department was supportive because I think if we're going to have them, that's probably the best location. And there's a whole lot of reasons why we didn't initially allow it, but I think there's a whole lot of better reasons now to consider. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Munich. Yes, I realize we do have initial guidelines in our code books, our Wildwood planning components, et cetera, but we need to make this as easy as possible for businesses to be able to move in here and continue to work. We have been much too critical about what I would call the ethereal things, where the trash location goes and where, what color the siding is and that kind of stuff. We put together the town center so that we could have businesses in this particular neck of the woods for our residents to come into the city of Wildwood instead of continuing to go to Eureka and Chesterfield, Baldwin, and some even go all the way out to Washington. So I would strongly request that we continue to look at creative ways where businesses are willing to follow our guidelines as best as possible, but we have to give them some latitude to be successful in their endeavors as well. So, okay, I'm off my speech block now.
Chair.
Mr. Galani.
Hey, thank you very much. I wanted to just second what Councilmember Hopper said and piggyback off what you said. I won't go into too much, but I think we should look at all of these proposals. We don't even have a specific location yet. And we're looking for things that need to be done or might need to be done and might need to be blocked. And I think that's the opposite approach that we should take. We should be looking at wait till they submit something that's more concrete or help facilitate them to do so. And when they do, we should be exhausting every opportunity to figure out how to make it work and how to approve it, versus the contrary. And I think that's for any business within the town center area. And I think that's something that we need to get better at. And we create a bad rap, so to speak, out there amongst the business community for folks that might be considering coming into our community. So, and we definitely need them. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Galani. Anybody else online? Anybody else in the room to go over this particular topic? And we can move on along to discuss the retail component for Greenberg Development.
Okay, so this, and Mr. Cohn, came in tonight and spoke to us on this issue. But, the department just wanted to provide the current plans to the committee for comment. So this would be a great time to discuss that piece. Obviously, the retail component was brought up here just because ARB had mentioned it. And, now we do know that that will be coming back as a white box retail versus the pet daycare slash, storage. So those areas marked with those, that title will be, changed. And along with that, they will be moving the trash enclosure to, well, not moving, but they'll have it behind the movie theater versus, and just increasing the number of pickups practically. So in this case, no real notes other than that, and available for any questions.
We happen to have a member of the development party from Greenberg Development here tonight. Does anybody on the committee have any questions about this particular development?
Yeah, I do. I know your back is to the,
I see you, Deb. If you want to go ahead and ask your questions.
so I was a little confused and I couldn't really hear when Mr. Cohn was speaking. So is the lower level of the building going to be totally retail, or is it just a section of it?
Go ahead, Mr. Greenberg. We'll open it up to you since you're the expert on this.
Still going.
Oh, I'm
To
sorry.
answer your question, all the frontage on the ground floor on Main Street will be either apartment amenities such as the fitness center, leasing office, and any other associated amenities. Probably have like a business office for the residents. The remainder, we have roughly a 3,500 square foot section at the far west end by the movie theater with a patio that we're hoping will be a restaurant at some point in time. The remainder will all be a retail component. We're no longer suggesting any type of storage lockers. We listened to the concerns about pet daycare and the issues that were at the other location near Schnucks with noise. And to be honest with you, if there's a problem with noise, it would be more of a problem for us with the multifamily residents than the city's concerned. So we're going to go strictly by the ordinance. That answers your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions regarding that facility?
I'm almost ashamed to ask.
That's okay.
All
There's
the
no,
developers here. I saw Big Lots 1 and 2, the commercial bar.
I'm sorry.
I saw lots 1 and 2, the largest lots fronting Main Street and then on the side Taylor. But for your multifamily to the south and east, where's lot number 1 out of 15? You start with number 2, I think. It's
There's
just got to be
issues
nuts.
with the survey and how all the property came together. So basically, I'm gonna do my best to answer your question. Lot number 1 should be approximately 5.5 acres. Let me think about that. Yeah, about 5.5 acres. That would be the location for the a multifamily and retail component. Lot number 2 should be roughly 2.02 acres where we're going to build the public pickleball courts. And lot number 3 should be roughly a 4.5 acre parcel for future development.
I was referring to the multifamily to the south that has units starting with lot 2 and extending to lot 15.
Okay,
it's fine.
And it,
literally on the same page.
that's the extent of concern
All
I
right,
have.
so this is, forget this.
Forget that.
Forget all of that. That's the residential, single family resident.
We're not talking about
We're
any
not
of that.
talking about that at all.
So there'll be a day when I do ask, where's lot one of these?
Oh, lot one of the, I'm sorry, now I understand, because sometimes I had the same question. I said, where is lot one? Well, we got four. Lot one is the multifamily mixed use development. That's lot one.
I got it.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. Pop the charge stop,
Okay,
okay?
Yeah,
But that's
The
lot
entire
one.
area is,
and that begat my
So this is,
recognition of
so
lot
this is-
one.
that's lot one is all of that.
So then you got a lot two.
Lot two should
Is that
be,
one?
this should be lot two.
That's lot two.
Yeah, that's before we consolidated.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Glad you're here.
All right.
if anybody wants a good education, go to a planning and zoning meeting. There's all sorts of details that you probably have never even heard of that they will go through. So always good. Any other questions on this particular topic? Okey-doke. We are moving on to our next topic, which is repurposing vacant bank properties. And if we could have our team from the city explain how many vacant bank properties do we have and what are we gonna do with them?
In this case, I'll add to that specific question real quick, and then I'll turn this over to Gina, with the department. In this case, we have currently 3 vacant bank properties. That includes Electro Credit Savings Union and Bank of America soon in October. And then we had the PNC Bank building, which has been hampered by the fact that PNC Bank still makes payments on that lease and will be doing so for the next at least 5 to 6 years. So in this case, that explains that piece a little bit further. But the idea here is that we are seeing, institutions like Bank of America and PNC Bank having issues staying open. Kind of looking at those spaces is what do we do with them? Especially with Bank of America, they own that property outright. It's the one property, the one parcel that's included in the Deerberg's Town Center over there on the right-hand side of the eastern side of the center of Town Center. And the question is, what can we potentially, try to attract to that space? And that's a discussion we wanted to have tonight. I will turn it over to Gina to add a little bit more input, but kind of going through what urban areas have done and then seeing how that could translate here, because some of those things that you would do in a traditional sense just would not make sense for these buildings. Over to you, Gina.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have a lot of information in front of you. I think it's more designed to be a bit of a brainstorming conversation, but in other places, the drive-through lanes and so forth maybe work a little bit better, but here that might be an obstacle, right? What do we do with the fact that some of them have it? Some of them may or may not have vaults. We're not really sure, but what could that mean for the repurposing future? We talked about some trends as you go down a little further, some might be turning into cafes. Does that make sense here? Maybe, maybe not. Co-working spaces, so kind of the last bullet point on this front page, talked about how secured vaults could be repurposed to maybe a private meeting room, while others could serve as collaborative spaces. There might not be a strong demand though for co-working spaces here in Wildwood. We're not really sure. In the past, there had been a co-working business that was here and now it's no longer open, so.
That happened around COVID.
Right, that was a very weird time, exactly. Others are maybe being turned into residential units, that might not make sense here. The list goes on, hotels, education centers, libraries, so forth. Professional services may or may not make more sense. So as you get down to the bottom of the second page, talks about some possible ideas for recommendations here. Maybe it could be a healthcare clinic or a pharmacy where the drive-through lane could serve as like picking up your prescriptions. Maybe the inside could be a secure space for storage of medical records. Number 2 bullet on here was the tech and innovation hub idea. Thomas was informing me earlier today about how that's been seen in action in another location here in town with the network technology partners. And then the third idea is obviously professional services, and would they be willing to reinvest to make it what they need it to be? Thomas was also pointing out as well and giving me a little education on Electro Savings and how that's been vacant for years, which I do remember, but they've really struggled to attract another credit union or bank to come and take it over. So we really are just looking for some ideas that you may have, some feedback, some input. Just maybe what you want us to have us focus some of our attention on.
And one note on the
Okay.
One note on the Electro Credit Savings Union is that currently the site-specific ordinance for that property does limit what can go in there to a financial institution, a bank, credit union, or an office space. So in that case, it couldn't be, you couldn't have like a fast food restaurant rent that space out. It wouldn't be practical to do that either way, but right now, the site-specific ordinance would have to be amended
It'd
for
be
that.
kind of cool to push the button and have the vacuum tube send your hamburger over to you. But Jetsons, here we are.
Sorry to
Mr.
interrupt.
Preston.
Yeah, sure. I guess my only concern, when looking at potentially if this thing were to be redone as another bank, within my company, I talk to a lot of banks and regional, national banks alike, all of them are looking to pretty much, mitigate the number of storefronts that they have out there. I mean, I think Bank of America alone, I do a lot of my private banking and stuff with them myself, and I think they've been cutting like storefronts back to like 20% or something. So I don't know if like the possibility of, or, the viability of another bank moving in there is great. The one thought I kind of had just looking at that space kind of initially, and only because it's kind of unique geographically to where it sits in relationship to the path, is there anything we can consider like looking at integrating, because it's pretty much the closest structure to the walking path there. Is there something we could look at, kind of retrofitting that area to have direct access over to there, have some sort of exercise or cafe or some sort of hub that would cater to the people walking on the trail? We really don't have a lot of the directly accessible things of that trail that could bring people in. There's a drive-through, people could walk a bike up and get food or snacks or something, or bike shop or something like that. But something that's kind of unique around with coming to Village Green and the foot traffic that and increased foot traffic that trail should likely see here in the coming years, hopefully. I mean, something like that could be a viable option,
Like a bike shop.
something like that. Just
Bike
nothing
shop
like it.
cafe.
Yeah, I mean, cause there's
understand
one
why
in
we don't
St.
have
Charles
one,
there and
yeah.
it's great, the Bike Shop Cafe right there off the Katy Trail off
Yes.
Main Street.
And it's actually called the Bike Shop
Yeah,
Cafe.
yeah, it's great. And
Yes.
they have like brunch and breakfast and stuff like that, it's real good.
With your chair, with
Go
your
right
permission, Vice Chair, Joe, could you speak a little bit further on the current, what we know about the site ordinance for that and what it would take to do an egress or ingress on, off 100?
A pedestrian ingress egress out of the Bank of America property is a discussion with Deerberg's Capital Land and MoDOT, but certainly could be accommodated easily. Vehicular access, when the state purchased the properties for the new 100, they basically purchased them with the restriction of limited access. So that's why there's really no access other than the one at Fountain Place. The property is in the downtown district, and that's the only district where drive-throughs are allowed. So it could be converted to something. I mean, it could have a range of uses. There's a
Yeah.
whole lot of opportunities.
And I think the egress ingress would only be suitable for foot traffic. I mean, there's no need for it for, vehicular. So,
They've already got a way to get in there.
yeah.
It's got a broad range of uses. The site-specific ordinance has a broad range of uses. All three bank locations.
I realize it's not a 1900 bank, but a lot of those older banks get converted into restaurants or bars or something similar to what you're talking about. Even a bike shop slash stopping place for people who are riding around in town.
There's really no bike shops in the area either, really. I mean, you have to go all the
I
way to
know.
Ellisville, like right by the Lifetime Fitness to get to the next bike shop. So it's a little bit of a ways away.
And this is a perfect discussion to have, and that's a great idea. We can definitely have some of those discussions, and we could try to get a hold of Bank of America to let them know that that would be a open discussion with the pedestrian use, which hopefully could help them try to sell that building, because they're gonna probably wanna offload that property tax and the amount of money that
Sure.
they're spending on
I
it
mean, it
as soon as
gives
they
them a little
can.
benefit for a while, but then it becomes a cost anchor. And because it's Bank of America, perhaps they have more feelers out for wanting to sell the property to a viable use. So is there anything that we have to change in our ordinance structure if we wanted to make it either a restaurant slash bike location, that kind of thing, because right now you guys said it was for a bank only, so,
But that's only electro credit savings.
oh, okay, okay.
That's just, thank
Mr. Mabry had a
Yes.
question.
just benefit of what I just read, today. Based on that, a comment from a city administrator, very interesting to me because I wasn't aware of what types of constraints there would be on allowable uses. I immediately thought back to, a petition, planning and zoning commissioner for the county. And there was a great deal of hubbub and vexation over turning a restaurant down in Manchester into a Firestone tire installation shop and a strip mall. You wouldn't ever think that would be a logical use of a restaurant and a strip mall. But it turned out they became one of the strongest anchors and most respectful businesses, and all the fear of noises and whatever else there was. So I was kind of proud of being on the right end of that decision. So I immediately thought of any of these bank structures that were self-standing or standalone, either as an outparcel to a development. And I don't honestly know much, except that I think I remember Bank of America being in the middle of the Deerbrick Strip Center.
No, it's on the
At the
far
end.
north end.
It's
And it's-
standalone.
It's a standalone.
It's a standalone.
Yep.
These things that have those canopies over them, even while those things aren't structurally intended to do anything more than keep rain off, that configuration
They
really
can be
thought to
used for
me,
bays.
I'm sorry,
They could be used for bays for,
they could be enclosed, strengthened, and be used for bays. In some instances, just like Dobbs and those that have doors on both sides of the building and a central area between them. So they're basically two deep entering from both sides. You've got a vault, which we don't know if there is or isn't those things in there in these three banks, but are car repair shops in self-standing banks and allowable use?
One concern I would raise for the Bank of America specifically would be the ingress egress issue, because typically I would assume that if Firestone would want primary access to 100, they would want that immediate access off the highway. So I think if we could get past that component, that could work. But I mean, Joe, is there any restrictions that you can think of that would be hampering that use at the Bank of America site?
Potential list of uses does include vehicle service and vehicle repair in the downtown district.
I think that there is only one car repair shop in Wildwood city limits.
Over there by like Larry's, right?
Larry's.
Larry's there.
It's right next door to Larry's, like, right?
Yeah, across the street from
Yeah,
Larry's. Yeah.
that's right.
There's another one down on by Big Bear.
That's Sunny's, where I'm.
Sunny's, yeah.
Okay, you were talking about Sunny's. okay.
Sunny's, is that Sunny's?
Yeah, you're right. That's Sunny's.
Okay, so there is only one? Or there's two?
Sinclair.
Where was this other one?
Sunny.
Albert Sinclair. So on, is that Old Manchester?
Manchester Road,
Not too far from,
it's next to Three French Hens.
yeah, through
Yeah.
Freeman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do
I didn't know that one.
do oil change facilities, do they have environmental liability concerns at those places?
Oh, yes.
I thought so, right? I mean, that would be a potential liability, a roadblock for people wanting to look at that on a. I don't know if the Tierbergs would want that on their property, I guess, or anyone for that standalone would want that type of liability potential. Maybe, I don't know.
Where it sits may not be a problem because there are no restaurants or eating facilities directly next to the building.
True.
But
And they don't have underground storage tanks at those places, as far as I know. They don't
no,
have.
they're above
Can't
ground
have to be
storage.
needed.
It has to be above ground. It can't be underground because it has to be inspected on an annual or semi-annual basis. Yes. Thank you. Mr. Galani, and then I'll come back to you, Ms. McCutcheon.
I think Deb was first.
Oh, well, we'll let Deb go first then. We can't hear you, Deb.
I said, that's perfectly all right, I'll wait. but thank you for yielding, Mr. Galani. I have a couple questions. One, you said you talked to Bank of America. Have you spoken to any other of the banks? Do they already have an idea of what they want to do with the buildings?
In this case, what's your chair?
Yes.
Yeah, permission by chair. PNC Bank has been out of the building here in Town Center for quite a bit of time, and along with Electro Credit Savings Union, so there was no direct contact information, but we have spoken to the two brokers that oversee those properties, and they've had some trouble. There is belief that the PNC Bank building, maybe they're collecting a check. The department believes that could be a case. If you're paying on a building, then you don't have the necessary motivation to lease that space out. But for the Electro Credit Savings Union, they've been looking for other credit unions to come into that space, and they have been unsuccessful finding them. It just, right now, even in the smaller financial market for, credit unions specifically, they're also having trouble growing and opening storefronts. It seems like it's going in the opposite direction, even at the small and mid-size type of institutions that might not be national chains. So in this case, we have not spoken to PNC or Electro Credit Savings Union directly, but the brokers we have spoken to.
Okay, so the one thing that I do hear frequently, and I know Mr. Lee, you and I have talked about this a little bit, is that we need some family-friendly things in Town Center. So maybe a small recreation center where tweens and teens can go, so we can give our kids something if the building sizes are amenable. And I spoke about maybe a small library at one point. I know the library didn't want to build, but if we have a building already there in existence, maybe we could, reach out to them again. Certainly family-friendly restaurants, I think, El Maguey is full all the time, and it's definitely family-friendly. And then I also thought, maybe a daycare or a preschool. I know there's a few of them, but I also know the need for working parents as a place to leave their children in a quality daycare. I know we have a few, but I also know a lot of parents are still looking close to home. And I think if you had something for teens or preteens or specifically families that, there's an ice cream shop there, and maybe we could get a few other things in there that would apply to more family oriented. I think that might be a good draw for those areas.
Thank you.
So you need to find a business person that's willing to do it.
That's.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But if we're just having a brainstorming session.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. McCutcheon. Mr. Galani?
Thank you. I think these are all great conversations to have and to talk about. I would just go back and I've said this multiple times before, and we love to talk about what we can do to bring more businesses or how we can fill certain vacancies. And we're talking about the banks right now. Obviously, there's a lot of other vacancies throughout Town Center and the downtown district specifically that have been there for a while, that are fully available, providing plenty of room for some of these ideas that we have, and yet we don't have the businesses coming in there to take advantage of those spaces. So when you talk about restaurants, we've got the former Benedetto's location, which is already completely built out and plug and play, ready to turn on, and we don't have anybody that's wanting to come in there, and it's a great location too. So, it's great to have conversations about who we can try to attract and what we can try to bring in and all that. But I think at the end of the day, the one component of this that we tend to shy away from the most as a council and a city is the development of the area that's going to bring the people there into the Town Center. We've got the reserve, we've got the Fisher thing over there in the triangle quadrant over there in Brightleaf. We've got numerous other development opportunities that are on the table that we're talking about. And these are the conversations that tend to last a lot longer and get drug out. I look forward to Mr. Cohn's development going in over there next to the theater. But in my personal opinion, this is what's going to drive the activity in Town Center in the downtown district, is more people that live right there, that are going to walk around, that are going to be creating that traffic. And as a business owner, that's where you're gonna wanna open your doors and put yourself in the middle of, not in an area that is very low traffic and desolate a lot of the times. And so, you know, with cost of labor being up, the inflation situation with cost of goods, margins are ever thinner than they've been in quite some time. And so if you're looking at where to make those investments, you're going to be considering where you're going to get the highest amount of traffic. And I brought it up last night in the Planning and Parks meeting as well, but that's why Ellisville, Eureka, and Chesterfield have a lot more businesses than we do. And they're busting at the seams in their economic districts because they've got a hell of a lot more traffic than we do by foot and by car. We're not going to compete directly in some of those capacities due to the lack of corporate companies that we have that Wildwood doesn't have. But I think what we can do is maximize that 2% high density development area in the town center district and get every single piece of that area developed as quickly as we can to bring more people in. That is going to directly lead to a more vibrant economic hub and downtown hub and create more community involvement, create more opportunity for activities. And really, I think with the Village Green going in over there is just another awesome focal point to build around. And so I think that's why we just need to be more hyper focused on getting these developments moved forward and getting them done so we can get the people living there and in the area that will then help attract the businesses versus going and, contacting companies or businesses to say, hey, come over here and park in this spot that's been vacant for 18 months and the last 3 places that went in there didn't make it type thing. So I'm just talking as a business person and how I would look at it if I was going to invest my own money into opening a storefront. And I think that's kind of what we need to look at. So the people and the wallets are what drive activity and get business owners excited about coming in. So I'll stop. Thanks.
One thing, if I could add
Yes,
one
sir.
note on that. Vice Chair, thank you. To your point, Mr. Galani, one thing that was brought up by the broker that is leasing out Benedetto's is that a lot of the interested parties that maybe have toured the space but haven't pulled the trigger on it, they had asked. The department's gotten a lot of questions about Mr. Cohn's development and when the timeline is for that, specifically focusing in on the addition of residents here in the town center area. So that does kind of speak to that need and how potential restaurant owners are looking at that space.
Well, good discussion, everybody. I think we've been batting this one around for a long, long time. And we need to be more open to new ideas for the town center from all the way at Manchester and 100 to the east, all the way out to 109 and the corridor north and south of 109, where we have businesses already residing. We have to do everything possible to make those existing businesses continue to succeed. One note that I wanted to make was the one location over by the Y, the community college, et cetera. When people are driving by there, how do they know what's there?
The area that's owned by RL Properties,
Yeah. How do they know what is in that shopping center?
there is no, other than the Main Street that one monument sign that says the name of the plaza, it does not actually have a monument sign that would show individual storefronts within there.
And what's the reason for that?
Mr. Boone, could we use our expertise here and with Mr. Boone?
Town center architectural guidelines and the design standards, for the most part, only authorize freestanding monument signs in the downtown district. So the exception was granted to allow the name of the center to be placed at New College Avenue and Route 109. Jones now manages that property
Yeah.
for her parents. And we've had a discussion of doing something similar there that we did for Stokes Wildwood Crossing, where we allowed the major tenants to put their names as part of the overall monument sign. Something I encouraged her to consider. It seems to have helped over at Wildwood's Schnucks Wildwood Crossing.
Okay. Okay. We just have to figure out ways that we can accommodate these folks on the retail side, especially as we move forward. Okay. Any more discussion on this particular topic? I know it's not an easy one to fix in a quick meeting tonight, so.
I'll just say one thing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I think to reiterate your point there is that, yeah, obviously it's ruffling some feathers locally with the Latitude project and, you know, the expansion of town's center, but like, to your point, I mean, I'm firmly believe you're correct in that if we don't have the foot traffic to sustain this, how are we ever gonna sell the prospect of coming here to people? And, you know, I mean, to do it right and tastefully, I mean, yes, I think that's a given, but at the same time, I mean, you watch developments like downtown Chesterfield take shape. And I mean, I don't even know how many units are in there, but I would, between single residence homes, condos, apartments, I mean, I would say 4 figures somewhere, you know what I mean? With now salons, restaurants, retail, a whole office district that's yet to be built. Parks, everything like that. You look at that and how they've managed to pull that together in just a couple of years. And, you know, here we struggle to fill a few blocks worth of apartments and or single family homes. And it's just, I think we need to do better for ourselves. We're running out the clock here and kind of running people ragged, and it's, you know, making the right moves and the right calls. I think we just need to try and be expedient about it.
I concur. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, because we're not going to solve this issue tonight, but good discussion. And I think we need to take some of this information back to City Council as a whole for some discussion. Use of paper copies for agendas. This is a hot topic.
They, with your permission, Vice Chair, Chair Ottenberg, and I and the department, also the city council as a whole has discussed the use of virtual copies versus paper copies. City of Wildwood prides ourselves on tree preservation and overall saving trees. So we do have instances where, and tonight's a good example where we've had paper copies put out. We did use a QR code system today as well. So residents that may have joined us or business owners, whoever might join us, was able to come in with a device, scan that QR code and access the agenda directly from whatever device they would have. The department wanted to put that out tonight just so we could experiment with it. And the goal would be, and the department's recommending, having one copy of the paper agenda out for inspection here, along with one copy of each supporting document in case someone would like to, you know, pick it up, take a quick look. But to have then a QR code that links directly to the agenda, and then it obviously gets them to the memorandums that would go with or supporting documentation. So tonight, the department's requesting a motion from the Economic Development Committee to move forward with the use of virtual copies over physical copies, and obviously accommodation can be made by contacting our city clerk, or if there's a committee member that would like to have physical copies, that can be done as well, just by reaching out to myself or the city clerk. Thank you.
Do we have any?
Make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Preston. Do we have a second on that motion?
Mr. Galani had a hand up.
Mr. Galani seconds.
Yep.
We have discussion on the floor. I see Ms. McCutcheon's hand up.
Have we reached out to residents about this idea and got some of their input on it?
In this case, we have not had, in the sense that we've reached out directly to residents with a survey or some type of questionnaire, no, but in the sense of speaking, we have an accommodation piece on our agendas here for certain meetings, well, all meetings, but specifically with EDC, I mean, we're gonna keep physical copies most likely for P and Z and council, but there are some that, like EDC, that we have not had many people request accommodations or have physical copies given. We were able to confirm with the city clerk's department today that there were no actual requests for physical copies or a specific copy be left by any residents or business owners for the last ever. They've never, for Economic Development Committee specifically. So we're only speaking on this committee. But in this case, this would be something that would be handled by each committee individually too. So in this case, we could also go out and do a survey or some type of questionnaire within some of the communication channels we've been pushing the last couple months.
At this particular time, I don't think it's necessary to do a survey of the residents. Having been on this committee for several years now, I've yet to see anybody who attends come and pick up a copy of either the agenda or some of the ancillary documents. Normally, the individuals that are coming are ones that have specific issues that they want to lay out with the committee and are more well-versed than we are in what the topic might be. Therefore, I don't know that it's necessary for us to have printed copies unless they make a contact with the city and ask for a printed copy to be provided before the proceedings start. So. Okay, yes, Mr. Mabry.
In a very short time I've been here as a council member, I had thought that there was no way to vote for it, but I've noticed that there are an awful lot of printed copies at council meetings that are left as though not taken and used. I'll see people wander by and around and shuffle things, but so many of them I've actually watched a couple times and they just end up not picking them up because they're armed for bear and they know more about what they're gonna talk about than what we know they're gonna talk about. For this meeting, I'm really not seeing the applicability anymore because I've gone and just entered the 21st century with a laptop.
Look at you.
I gotta get to work, it kills me. So I'll have the ability to go through everything there is. This would be the 2 pages that it is, if it didn't have this entire proposal for the development we talked about this evening. And it's a good copy, but I didn't see that I needed it since I looked at it enough to be familiar during the day-to-day. So I know we're responding to only this committee, so I'd say that it's a no-brainer to go paperless here.
Okay.
But for the city council meetings, I had thought that the more pragmatic way would be to cease the majority of that printout and copying, and then wait for umbrage and catastrophe, and then we could reply by a survey if it became pertinent.
See who squawks. Yeah,
And why? It's because that would be purposeful. Who
yeah.
squawks and why, and what about? And then selective.
Yeah, the majority of the world in the United States now is on electronic versions of things, so as long as we continue to have power, we're okay. When we don't, we've got other things. Do we have anything else?
We need to vote.
Yes, I know. we do.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, can we take a vote on this issue? How many people are in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, that particular request passes, so we have no more paper. If you want to write on the agenda, print off a copy and bring it with you, okay?
Want
Not
anything in
hard.
paper too that just reach out to myself or the city clerk and we can make sure we get you.
Okay, sounds good, sounds good. Any other topics for the evening, ladies and gentlemen? I know it was a very short agenda this evening. It doesn't sound like there's anything else. Do we have anybody moving for close on the meeting?
Mr. Galati.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Galani first and second. Mr. Preston, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, thanks you all for a somewhat productive evening.